5 ancient energy systems are returning with our human evolutionary process. I am going to tell you all about those systems today, what they are, what they do, and how they can help you and how they can really radically change your life. I'm Paige. I'm an energy healer and a channel. And I've been working with energy healing since 2013 officially, and have been channeling different beings, communicating with the spirit world since 1995. So that's a little background on me if you aren't familiar with me. So let's talk about these energy systems and where they're coming from, how all this began. First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the beings who are bringing this information in, because this is all channeled information, and the beings who are sharing this are from the Galactic Center. So these beings they have said that they are from the center of our multiverse. And as someone who has done a lot of channeling and worked with a lot of galactics, I've worked with the Sirians, the Pleiadians, Arcturians, the Andromedans, and Galactic Federation quite extensively, actually. And I love working with galactics. I love channeling their frequency, their energy. It's tremendous. And I've found it to be tremendously helpful for my clients working with people. It can be absolutely transformational. So hello there, you guys. So if you have questions, let me just briefly pause and say, for anyone who has questions as we're going through, just put those questions in the chat, because at the end I can answer them as I go, but also I'm happy to answer questions. And also, if you're watching this after the fact, you can put your questions in the comments and I will answer those. We are also going to connect with the Galactic Center beings. And if we have questions that I can't answer, we will put them out to those beings. All right, but back to who they are. So let's begin there. There's quite a long story that goes with that. I'm not going to get into all of that right now, even though I do enjoy telling it, but it's probably more than we can get into right now. But I'll just say that they began coming in a couple years ago in 2023, February of 2023. And they just, appeared one day and started basically working with a small group that I was working with. And they started coming into my sessions, in different sessions, started coming into some of the Metatron channelings on the Insight Timer for anyone who has participated in those. And what they were doing was observing. They were here to observe what was happening with us here on the planet, and were determining if they wanted to get involved with us. So unlike these other groups that you've probably heard about, that I mentioned, the Arcturians and Pleiadians and Sirians and others, who do work with us and have been working with us for thousands of years and helping us in this evolutionary process that we're in, the Galactic Center beings have not, and there's a reason for that. They are a much higher order of being. So what they have said is that they are the most highly evolved group in our multiverse. And I ask them this just for comparison, and I share it just for comparison. It's not for bragging rights, it's just for comparison. But what they have said is that they are about 20 times more evolved than those other groups that we're used to working with. And for comparison, those groups, the Arcturians, Pleiadians, etc., are about 10 times more evolved than we are as humans. So that should give you just a framework and some context. So these beings, for that reason, it's like if you were to take a comparison between a PhD student and a primary school student. They would be the PhD students and we would be the primary school students. So the PhD students would be more likely to work with others who are, in college or who are in university, just close to the same kind of level of information. Rather than helping out, in the first grade classroom, helping the first graders get to second grade, right? There are teachers who do that. So we have wonderful teachers who do that with us. And the reason ultimately that they decided to work with us has a much bigger picture to it, which is actually pretty exciting. And so this sort of takes things to another level. So I'll tell you that the bigger picture is not about us. It is about creating an accelerated evolutionary process that can be replicated with other beings of light. And those might be beings of light within our multiverse, and they might be in other multiverses. And there is another sort of higher order to all of this, that there is a high council that are representatives of 43 multiverses, all at the same level as our Galactic Center beings. They all represent the center of, or the most highly evolved of their multiverses, and they're overseeing this. So ultimately, this was coming from them. So that gives you kind of the backdrop of how this began. So what happened is they didn't tell me really much of that to begin with. They were just coming in, and then they had this really incredible, beautiful energy that blew me away. And they didn't want to be acknowledged, so I didn't talk about them for a long time. In fact, it wasn't until fall of 2024 that I first mentioned them, because they said they were ready to kind of come out publicly and be acknowledged. So right around the end of October of 2024, they told me they wanted to start working with people. And I said, okay, sure, let's do it. We could do it. Maybe you start in January or February or maybe even March. And they said no, December. They were ready in December. They wanted to start in December. And I said, okay. So then I needed to know what it was we were going to be doing and what this was all about. So that's another thing that I can tell you a little bit about. It's called the Human Reformulation. It's something that they started, and I'm not going to get into a lot of detail about that, but I will share more later. And if you sign up for my email list, there's a link in the description below where you'll also get a guide to these 5 systems. Then you'll find out more as I'm sharing about that on my list. So the bottom line was they started it. They wanted to start in December, and they wanted to work with people in this accelerated evolutionary experience. And I said, okay, I need to know what's happening. What do I tell people? What is this going to be? What is this about? And the first thing they said was it would be a 60% reduction in aging. And I was like, okay, that's fantastic. That's pretty amazing. But how? Why? How is that going to happen? So then they said there were 2 main things. One is the activation of latent DNA, which is great and very exciting, and also not something that I haven't heard in other places. So I was like, well, that's good. And then they said also there would be a return of 5 energy systems that have been dormant for 90,000 years. And that really got my attention, because as an energy healer, I love working with the human biofield, everything that's involved. I love energy. I love talking about energy. And so I couldn't wait to hear more about these 5 systems. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I hope that we have some energy healers here, because I think this is really, really exciting, especially for anyone who works with energy. I'm going to go through the systems, and I'm going to give you as much information as I have gotten so far about these systems, although I do expect a lot more to develop as we go. To give you just a snapshot of what they've been doing, is we have a process now called the Human Reformulation process that I'm leading people through. And through this process, they are activating this DNA and activating these energy systems. Now, they have said that these things would happen normally without intervention as part of our evolutionary process. But this is an accelerated approach, right? So that's what they are focused on, is how to make that happen more quickly. And just to give you a sense of context there, I was asking, well, what's the comparison? If you don't do this, how long will it take for these same systems to activate? And so what they told me was, this is what they're aiming for, is a 100 times acceleration of the evolutionary process, in that without doing this frequency work with them, it would take up to 280 years for these changes to take place. And that would be for the sort of least evolved among us. They said the most enlightened among us would be able to achieve these changes in about 50 years. So within a lifetime for the most enlightened among us. But I would guess that most people are going to fall somewhere in the middle, probably closer to around 200 years, between 150 and 200. So not in one lifetime is the bottom line, right? So what they are proposing is that with our accelerated program, they're going to achieve the same thing in just 3 years. And that's because, and what they do with the program is they send through the frequency and they work with people very intensively to integrate those frequencies and get everything started, get it all moving. And then they monitor those people and throughout the process. So it's very intensive. And again, I'll tell you more about that in another time or through my emails. So today we're going to talk about the energy systems. So let's get started there. The first energy system is called the cosmic interchange system. And I wanted to have images that I could share with on the screen here. And I don't have them available for sharing here. But again, if you do the email sign up, you'll get, it's in the description, you'll get the guide, and the guide has images for each of these. So the cosmic interchange system is a vortex that comes down over the top of the head. So think of the point of the funnel of the vortex as being over the top of the head at the 9th chakra. That sits a little bit above your head, maybe 12 inches or so above your head. And the 9th chakra is a point, it's sort of a intermediary between the chakras that are governing the physical body and the blueprint of health and the blueprint of your physical expression, and the chakras that are what you would consider more the spiritual chakras, are concerned with the higher aspects of the self, the spirit, etc. So this system links in at that 9th chakra, and then from there, it forms a dome that comes down over the shoulders. And then right about here, it sort of looks like an umbrella. And then right here, at what would be like the bottom of the umbrella, there are lines that shoot out, and they come from the shoulder level and go all the way down to the ground, and they're at a diagonal. So it looks like if you were to hold a bunch of sticks, like there used to be that game called pick up sticks. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but you'd hold all these little sticks and they would sort of open at the top and open at the bottom. It looks like that because these lines are crossing, but they're sort of crossing at the waist. So it has that sort of look, like it's open at the top and open at the bottom. I hope that makes sense. Hold on one second. Let's see. The question: what can they do or produce that the other beings haven't or can't do? Well, okay. So I think I'm covering that. So if you still have that question at the end, you can ask. So this system it's all about the exchange of cosmic energy, and it's I should say it's an exchange of energy between your system and the cosmos, essentially. But it allows you to be able to receive and integrate these higher cosmic frequencies that come in. So this is the first system that activates in this process that they've devised. And that's because it has to be active for us to be able to really work with these energies. Now, one thing that they have said about all of these systems is that this is not a process that happens instantaneously, right? It's not like you snap your fingers and there it is, it's in place and it's functional. It takes some time for these systems first to form in the field, and then it takes time for them to sort of amp up or become fully active. And that's not a fast process. So I personally have been in this process for a year now, and I can say that the first couple of systems for me are, the last I checked, they were at about, I want to say 30% activity. So so they start right when you first start the process, and then it takes that time for them to really come into fullness. And that's what the 3-year period is. The 3-year period is the time that it takes for your body to make all of these adjustments and for these systems and these changes to really take hold and and be complete, let's say, in your system. So that is the first one. And again, this is it is a gateway for us to be able to ascend to higher states, to really access frequencies and dimensions that we have not accessed before. And that's another thing that the galactic beings have said, the Galactic Center beings have said, is that one thing these systems will do is that they'll allow us not only to attain higher states, but to live from higher states, to remain in those higher states. Because now, if you're doing your channeling meditations and other things that can really take you into those high places, it's not a permanent state. You don't go there and stay there. You go and you're there for a bit and then you come back out. And that's normal and perfectly fine. And what you do is you are gradually moving the needle so that you're going there more and more, and then that your baseline is raising slowly, right? That's how we shift our frequency, is by accessing more higher states more often, and then we shift our baseline. So what they're saying is the baseline would really shift with these new systems. Okay, so system number 2 is the spiritual fascia. Now, I gave them these names, but they were approved by the Galactic Center beings. So the spiritual fascia it's like, if you think of the physical fascia, so the fascia in your body is a connective network. It's a tissue that's a connective tissue, and it basically connects everything in the physical body. And it could be a communication network, a way for systems to communicate through energy. And the spiritual fascia acts in a similar way. This one sits out in the field, and I've got my notes here because I can't remember all of the details of everything. I get confused with how far they are. But this one is the 10th layer of the aura, so it's pretty far out. And it is like, when they showed it to me, it's like a silvery cocoon-like network. And one thing I have to say about that is, one thing that I loved about working with people with these systems is that other people see them as well. When they're coming in, they started saying, "Oh, I saw these little threads out in my field." So that was very exciting. So it's like a web. You could think of it as a web. And it is carrying these higher cosmic frequencies. So the ones that you're bringing in through the cosmic interchange system are then kind of finding their place in your field out in this spiritual fascia. So this is really the system that I think is going to anchor us into higher states, and not only into higher states, but they have said to help us remember our cosmic connection through like a felt memory, to bring back the memory of our galactic nature and the understanding that comes with that we are part of a larger galactic community, that we are not the only life form. Of course, I'm sure most of you here don't see it that way anyway, but a huge shift for humanity to start to really, incorporate that into our everyday lives. And that's kind of a hard thing to even imagine. But interdimensionality, so the ability to move between dimensions, to sort of perceive between dimensions and receive information in that way. So there's a lot with this system. I'm just looking at my notes on one thing that they had said, that it enlivens our spiritual expression. That was one thing that's specific that they said, by maintaining higher cosmic frequencies that align us to our galactic community. So that is the second system, and that one also comes into form in the field. pretty quickly when they're doing these, doing the transmissions, the frequency transmissions. Well, let's see, that's the other question. Are these systems designed to address the physical or the light body? They do both. So we're going to get there. Um, the way it seems to me is that they start at the higher spiritual level. So they're all going to be part of the light body because they're energy systems. But the let's say the aspect of the self that's most affected with these first two is going to be more of the spiritual expression. And then as we kind of get down and as we move through these others that take longer to come into form, we move into the denser energies of the body. We get down to the physical, the densest energy. And I think that that is why they take longer to form. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. That's the electrical field, the third system. And this one takes a little bit longer. There's sort of a gap between those first two coming in, and then we get to the electrical field. The electrical field sits 20 feet off of the body, so it's pretty far out. It's the farthest of these. And the electrical field looks a lot like a plasma globe, if you've seen those. You know, those things that, you know, if you put your hand on the outside, you'll see the little lines of electricity going to usually it's some sort of light bulb looking thing in the center. It's very similar when they show it to me. And what they've said is that the electrical energy is coming in and being captured, let's say, from the environment. So it could be from a lot of different sources. It could be just from the energy around us, scalar energies. It could be energy that comes from the sun. It could be cosmic energies that come into the environment. So a lot of different things. And it's bringing those energies into our system to sort of recharge the battery, essentially. And it's constantly going. So it's like you're constantly getting recharged. Just like kind of reminds me of like the electrical cars, right? When they run, the battery recharges. So it's almost like it's just always keeping that charge, keeping our energy strong. And from the energetic perspective, I work with Eden Energy Medicine, and one of the systems we look at is the electrical energy system. It's important to remember all the systems are interwoven; they all work together. But just for understanding, we can kind of parse them out. And the electrical energy system is a communication system. You know, we are electrical beings. We run on electrical energy. The heart is the main generator of electrical energy in the body. And the electrical energy system is like a network throughout the body for all forms of communication. So when it gets disrupted or it's weakened, then we can have problems that arise, and that could be any kind of problem, some sort of a slight disruption to an illness of some sort that's able to take hold because of the disruption. So whenever we're talking about energy, disruption causes imbalance, which it creates weakness or vulnerability. So again, this system would maintain health by always charging that electrical energy. Electrical energy also is something it's very closely associated with your nervous system for one thing, and also very closely associated with vitality, a sense of vitality, that feeling of having energy, of being energized. When the electrical energies are kind of low, you really have to get in there and charge that back up. So this could be that it creates that effect for us once it's fully functional, that it gives us a lot more energy. So it starts to make sense when we think about this, if we think about the 60% reduction in aging, how these systems would relate to that, how they could create that effect. Let's see. Well, the new systems automatically help us repel and deflect psychic attacks and lower frequencies, or will the raised frequency then attract stronger forms of darkness? Yeah, I don't really spend a lot of time thinking about psychic attacks and attracting darkness, because I think the more you focus on those things, the more you bring that to yourself. So I haven't even gotten into asking about that, and it's probably not something that I'll ask about with the guides. Just again for the same reason. In my opinion, psychic attacks and all of that, that's the kind of thing that you have to just kind of give yourself a protective field and work with your own guides. If you have issues with psychic attacks, that's where you need to work with your own guides and ask them to help you create a nice, strong boundary and not allow in anything that isn't for your highest good. And in fact, that is the number one tip I have for everyone is always want to have a filter. You create that filter in your field to not to only allow in energies that are for your highest good. That has always been my practice, especially when connecting with other beings. When you're connecting with beings and you don't know who they are, like I'm doing a lot of the time, you welcome them in, but you say, you can only come in if you're here for my highest good, and then, ask them to identify themselves, etc. So I think that's my best answer to that question, Eric. Hey, Eric, you figured out how to ask a question. Yay! Farmer Okay. All right. I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to with the question, but that's good. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, so let's move on to the fourth system. The fourth system is the polarity field. And this one sits about 3 feet away from the body, so it's pretty close to you. This one, again, for context, I said I've been in this process for a year now myself, and this polarity field is just forming in my biofield. What this one does is it maintains polarities throughout the energy system. So those of you who are Eden practitioners will know what I'm talking about with that. Polarity is we have electromagnetic energy in our field, and you can test for the polarity, which is north-south, right? Electromagnetic energy carries polarity, north-south polarity. You can test for it, and you can work on the polarity. You can, with different techniques and tools, work on the polarity. So we're not going to go into that, but correcting polarity is one of the techniques that you would use in a healing session. So you can generally find that areas of disruption, areas of vulnerability, areas where there may already be some sort of illness are going to have disrupted polarity. It's pretty much a guarantee. Polarity is a healthy, strong polarity is a sign of wellness and strength in the system. When there's disruption, the polarity can be one of the first places that it shows up. So it doesn't have to already have evolved into something. It can just be the very beginning of a disruption. It'll show up in the polarity. So it doesn't necessarily mean that there's already something happening on a let's say something really detrimental happening, but it is a good sign that this is an area that needs attention. What this field would do is it would correct the polarities automatically. So it's like a sensing field. And the way I see it is lots of flashes, which is when when we work on polarity, we flip. We do north-south flipping. So this shows up as a field with lots of flashes happening all the time. And that's where it's sensing for polarity discrepancies, let's say, and then correcting them. Always happening. So again, if you think about that, correct polarity is one of the foundational pieces of balance for a stable system. Then that would be huge to always have that in place and working for you. And again, these are things you wouldn't have to use any intention to make this happen. You don't have to work on it. You don't have to build it up. It'll just happen on its own, right? These are intelligent systems, like all of your systems. Let's see. How do these systems relate to the Hermetic principles? Oh, I have not thought about that, and that is definitely not a question I can answer. So I'll have to sit with that one a bit. Okay, moving on. System number 5, the regenerative field. This is a large spinning cocoon, like that sits about 5 feet off of the body, and it looks like threads of white light that are spinning very fast. So it's just constant like this all around us. It's open at the top and the bottom, and it's shaped like a cocoon. So it really forms around, I would say like form fitting right to the body. And it is specifically about the physical body and our physical health and the health of all of the systems, the body's physical systems. So it is entirely focused on physical health, this one. And what it's doing is regenerating at a cellular level to the frequency of perfect health. Now, I've asked about this. One thing that came up in one of my sessions, working with people with this human reformulation, was, are we, if we're regenerating, are we going back to where we were? And the answer is no. What it's doing is regenerating to a higher place, regenerating to the higher expression. So this field carries the imprint, knows the imprint of perfect health at a higher expression for all of the systems in the body, for all of the cells in the body. And it, like the last one I talked about, it's detecting where something is amiss and correcting it, regenerating. So if it detects a disturbance, if it detects a vulnerability, it will regenerate that. I can't remember what I was asking about today. It was something specific I was asking, as I do a lot of asking these guides, will this change? Will that change? And something I was asking about today, I think it was healing, because you might have noticed I have a Band-Aid today. I cut my hand while I was washing dishes this morning. And I was asking about, would this heal more quickly than it would have in the past? And they said, yes, but in the future, it will heal even more quickly with the regenerative field. So they have said, as part of this process, things like we could regenerate a limb, regrow a limb, that we have the innate ability to do that. And now with these systems in place and with that DNA activated, that these things would be possible for us. They have said it would take time for the physical manifestations to really take form. So we'll be feeling it in small amounts along the way, but they have said that it could take up to 5 years to really experience the manifestation of these on a physical level. Because a lot of people, are interested in knowing about healing, physical healing. And I have seen some pretty amazing healing actually already through this process of chronic issues and other things. And I'm still waiting to see how that plays out. We're sort of at the beginning of that right now, I think. But lots of potential for sure, and very exciting to think about what's possible for us with these systems. So there we have it. That's the overview of the systems of what I've got so far. I am hoping that in the future, hopefully in the near future, I'll have not only more information about them, but also have learned a bit about how to test for them. Again, for those who are practitioners, how to test the field to see if they're present, to see if they're active, and then also how to work with them, like we work with all the other systems, strengthening or clearing, and even if that's going to be necessary. And that's another question, And also, I mean, this brings in lots of other questions about how they could affect the other systems. Will they also regenerate all these other energy systems so that we don't need to work on them any longer? Will we not need to clear the chakras, or will we not need to energize the meridians or clear meridians, or all of these different things that we do? Will we not need to work on the electrical energy system? So there are a lot of questions around that and how they'll integrate with everything else. So if we have any questions, you can put those in the chat. I mean, other than what you put there, and the hermetic systems, I don't think that I can answer that one. But we can, if you have other questions, we can ask the guides. We can see what they say. We can go ahead and connect with the guides if there aren't questions. And that's one thing that you might really enjoy doing. We'll sit with that energy a bit and just see how it feels for you. Here, one thing that I've found in my, I hold an information session before I enroll for these reformulation programs. And one thing I've found is that in that information session, the guides are always with us. They're there, and they seem to be reaching out to people. So the people who have joined us so far have said that they really felt called. They felt a strong energy after the session, or they had some really intense dreams, or some other thing where they just really felt like this was the right thing for them. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens today. And for anyone who's watching this after the fact, um, if you feel like they're reaching out to you, they probably are. Let me just say that. Hey, Lisa. Let's see. Am I keeping statistics and data on the results of of the deployment of these systems? Yeah, that's a great question, Glenn. I am, let's say loosely, and I have asked the people in the program to send me also any biometrics that they track of themselves, as I have had a couple people send me some really interesting information. Can't remember it off the top of my head now. What was it? I can't remember now. Heart rate variability. That was one thing that had a big shift. But I haven't had a lot of people who are tracking. What people tend to be tracking more is the sort of day-to-day stuff, like well, first of all, how they feel day to day. I mean, there's been a lot. It would be a lot to go into, but there has been a lot with this process. It's an intensive process. Let me say that when you receive these frequencies, it is like a deep healing process begins, because it also is shifting your energy system on a deep level. So for some people, it's very easy, and for other people, it has been quite intense. So a lot of people are noticing emotions, for one thing. And I will say, intense, but also really positive. So it's if you've been through a healing process, it's not easy. So there can be difficult moments, as with any healing process, but then there are some really beautiful moments, and the outcomes are coming very quickly. The changes are coming very quickly. The transformation is coming very quickly, and that has been kind of mind-boggling, actually, for me. And from the perspective of a practitioner, having worked with people for years, worked with hundreds of people and their processes, this is happening very, very fast. Very, very fast is what I would say. It's a lot of change very fast. I have one therapist who described it as 10 years of therapy in like a month or two. So when you ask about the tracking, it's hard to say what we can attribute to each system and being able to track that, because those things are harder to capture, really. What shows up, symptomatically, what we notice is a lot of emotion, a lot of perspective shifts. A lot of people saying that they don't react and respond in the same ways they used to. Physical things happening. It's hard to, I mean, everybody's a little different. So whatever that person was dealing with, they're seeing changes, or they're seeing shifts, let's say, for sure, in what their experience is. Some that are like already experiencing a lot of improvement, and some that are like, well, it was this, now it's that. Now I'm not sure where it is. It's kind of just shifting. Um, Food preferences changing, dietary changes, really changes in mood and attitude. Um, changes, and then of course all of that goes into your relationships and how you respond and react with other people. There's been a lot of that, but some really nice changes in chronic physical health conditions, chronic mental health conditions, um, energy levels. I had somebody who's got some serious physical issues saying that she could barely walk her dogs, and now she's doing 2 high intensity training workouts per week, and feeling the same, feeling good after she does. She's tired, but she's okay and she can keep doing it. So that's been amazing. Um, so that I hope that gives you some sense. I know it's hard. I wish I could track them to the systems specifically, and that may be something that I can sort of learn to look for over time. Is, well, this system tends to do this and that system tends to bring that change. So again, still at the beginning. And also, since these systems are still just ramping up for people, I started with the first group in December, and that group would just now be at about, probably for the average person, 20 to 30% capacity for the first 2 systems, and the others would probably still just be very low or not online yet. So it's going to take some time. Let's see, Rose. Hey, Rose. Can I repeat the timeline of the systems? We should expect them to be activated. Yeah. So the timeline, the first 2 have been activating within that first month. So when we do the program, there's a very intensive period at the beginning of the transmissions, and those first 2 are taking form and beginning to function, let's say, then. And the third system seems to be turning on for most people. It's after that first month, but it's before the end of their integration. There's an integration period that lasts 5 months after those initial sessions. And then the fourth system is after that. It's after that first integration period. And the fifth system is the last one to come online. So that one is taking, could be a year or even over a year. It's not formed in my biofield yet, and I've been in it for a year. Hi, Carol. Am I able to view your field to evaluate how you're doing with each of these systems? No, I wish I could see. I don't see energies in that way. I feel them. I see some, with inner vision, but not in that way. I really wish I could. So I ask, I send to them. And I've been asking, where is this now? How far along is this one? And Maria, hey, Maria, do we need supplements still, like vitamin D3, et cetera? That is such a great question. I mean, I would say I always test. I use energy testing to determine, with foods and supplements, what I need. That for me would be the way to determine if you need supplements. And I do think that could change. I just don't know. But let's ask. Let's ask the guides about that. That's a good question. Eric, your mental state is much better. Great. Yeah. So Eric has participated in this and he's saying his mental state is much better. That's fantastic. And B, so you did the reformulation series in December. Great. One big shift lately is that I need less sleep. Oh, that's interesting. And wake up at 5:30 to 6 a.m. Sorry, I'm going to grab my glasses. Clear, sharp, and alert. Oh, that sounds fantastic. Formerly, I needed 10 to 12 hours of sleep. That is a huge change. Wow. That's great. Good to hear. And I have, there's someone else who's told me that they've had a lot of mental clarity, big changes in mental clarity. That's reminding me of that. Hey, Peggy. Yep, Peggy was in the first group. Anything to add there, Peggy? Okay, you guys. Well, why don't let's let's go in and let's go ahead and connect with the Galactic Center beings. And I'll put the question out there about the vitamins, and then we can, if there's anything else, pop it in there, and then we can go ahead and just receive some energy and see what they have for us today. Okay, so let me just open up to them. This will take just a minute. And I'll just have you all also go ahead and open to them. And like I was saying, set the intention to only connect to beings that have your highest good at heart. It's not because these beings don't have your highest good at heart, but because there could be other things around you. So you always just set that intention, filtering your field to only allow in connection with beings that have your highest good at heart. Okay. So I'm putting out the question about the vitamins and supplements and do nutrients in general, etc. They are showing, and this is hard to describe. So with them, the information a lot of times comes in as a an understanding, but it can be difficult to put into words at times. This is okay. So they're showing a different type of, I don't want to say a different type of body, but it's a system that operates differently. Is the best way to put it. A system that is, let's say, optimized to a degree that it doesn't have those same needs that it used to. So they're saying there's going to be a slow progression in the system, and you may need things. Well, let's say need things. We will look for things or be drawn to things we weren't drawn to before. And they're showing this as, yeah, how we take in energy, right? So food is energy for our body. The kinds of foods that we'll want, the kinds of foods that will resonate with us, that will align energetically, that will feed us energetically, will be different. And I'm asking for a little more information about that. It feels like less, yeah, they're saying, yeah, less animal products. And something, it's like, and this is really hard for me to see what they're showing, but it's almost like they're pulling some sort of supplement or vitamin from a source that we aren't familiar with right now. Something that hasn't been discovered, they're saying. That would become a consistent source of energy for us if we were to take it in. But these things, okay, so they're showing that these things that I'm getting this immediate sense of all this sort of vitamins that we're used to, the multivitamins and other vitamins and the supplements, they're showing that that's sort of going to be like a thing of the past, like the old body, the old way. They're showing a lot of it feels like a highly energized body. And this is something that I'll just share because it came up for me today. I was, for some reason, getting the sense that people who've done the reformulation might look a little different. And I was asking about that, and they said, yes, they would look different. And I was a little concerned at first. How are we going to look different? And they said, imagining, they showed me like this sort of imagine a lot of very healthy, fit people, like a room full of people that just seem like vibrant in a way and strong. They said that's what they'll look like. So then that felt good. I was like, okay, that's good. Uh, okay, how does this system compare to an Arcturian healing chamber? I'm going to put that question out there because I don't know what that is, an Arcturian healing chamber. So let's just see what they say. And then Rose is asking about mushrooms as a source of energy. It's not mushrooms because we already know about mushrooms, but I can ask if there's something they have to say about mushrooms. So the art, what they're showing me with this Arcturian healing chamber, and again, I don't know what that is, but they're saying it's working at a level of the body as it is now. So it's working on the healing of this, what we would call like the unevolved or not yet evolved body. And on that note, the Arcturians participate um, in this process a little bit. This is an interesting topic. The Galactic Center don't really work with other groups that we're familiar with because they kind of want to do their own thing. It's very highly specialized what they do. They bring their own helpers with them, but they have communicated with the Arcturians. They've sort of chosen the Arcturians as the one group that they will sort of communicate with and work with as a source of information because the Arcturians know us so well, they know our bodies so well, they've worked with us for so long that they communicate with the Arcturians to help their understanding of the human body, the Galactic's understanding of the human body. And when we're in the process, one thing you can do they've given the okay to is asking the Arcturians for assistance if you're feeling really out of sorts, which can happen at times in that process. And a lot of people have had really great experiences with calling in the Arcturians to help get things, smooth something out that feels really agitated, or help them get to sleep if they're not able to sleep, or whatever it might be, but to help them with the physical aspects of integrating these energies. So that's interesting that you asked about the Arcturians. Oh, Donna's asking, will eye color change? That's a good question. We can ask that. And will the higher frequencies naturally abate or modify our human egos? Right, good question. That would be a welcome benefit. Yeah. That's part of what they said with the spiritual fascia was that it helps us to transcend our ego state, let's say, and move into a state that's unity consciousness, which is one of the main things they've talked about with as far as the spiritual changes in this shift. So that's probably the answer there. I don't think it's not going to get rid of the ego because you need your ego to be able to function here on the planet. You need an identity, and you need to be in order. The ego it gives you something to operate as, right? You are a unique individual, so it gives you a vehicle for that spirit to come in. So you don't want to transcend it or leave it behind completely, but it bridges, right? It bridges us from into unity consciousness and away from being restricted to an ego state. And Carlotta, hi Carlotta, I would be interested in finding out how they see if psychedelics, plant medicine like ayahuasca assists in evolving and expansion. Okay, so let's ask about eye color, psychedelics, and mushrooms as a source of energy. So let me take one sip of water or tea, my sweet tea. All right, so here we go. I'm going to start with the mushroom question. They aren't showing that mushrooms as a source of energy, but they are showing it as a source of medicine, a healing aid. And this was the non-psychedelic mushrooms. I'm going to ask about eye color. So I was asking about not just eye color, but hair color also, and any other sort of skin color, anything like that that could be affected. And they're not saying that that's likely. It was sort of just a no, and then I asked, is it possible, or they just said not likely. And blood type, someone else had asked about blood type in the past, so I kind of threw that one in also not likely, they're saying. Okay, and the final question was plant medicines, and let's see, there's another one. Psychedelics, plant medicines assisting in evolving and expansion, aid in the development of telekinetic, telepathy, levitation, transportation. I speak on access to creative channels and if there could be new access to different sources of creative energy. Okay. All right, so here we go. Let's see what the psychedelics. So they aren't saying that the psychedelics would aid in our evolution, but they're saying that the psychedelics aid in our transcendence of that ego or separateness, that ego consciousness. They open the way for moving towards unity consciousness, but it's not in an evolutionary way. They're really showing psychedelics as windows, like opening to something, but then it closes again. So it's not keeping you there, which would be evolutionary. It's opening and showing you something, which is big. It can have a big effect on you, can be very healing, can help you shift perspective and move to a different state of consciousness. Okay, the next one was so the question of, do these systems aid in the development of telekinetic, telepathy, levitation, or teleportation abilities? Um, Telepathy, they've already said yes, that is part of what this process is going to lead to in terms of the spiritual part of the spiritual experience, as part of the spiritual changes. Telekinetic, I'm not sure. Let's see, levitation and teleportation. Let's see. They are showing a lot of moving beyond. This feels to me like remote viewing or lucid dreaming kinds of things, but like moving beyond the really, it's beyond the mind, is the way it's coming up, moving outside of conditioned states, and a lot more travel in that way, but it doesn't feel like it's teleportation, but it feels like being able to access uh, places at a distance without going. And communication at a distance in that way. That feels, it doesn't feel quite like telepathic communication. It is, but it feels like more than telepathic. It almost feels like showing up at someone's house in that and but not in full physical form, not like you would materialize fully there, but you would be like a holographic form. It does feel like that is possible. That this would be normal is what they're showing, actually. Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, sorry, I kind of got stuck on that one, but it's showing like communication at long distance with, even like joining a meeting or something. It's like being on a Zoom without Zoom, like showing up and joining a meeting. So that's, I think, all I've got for that one. And the last one, I'm going to finish with this one and then we'll do our connection. So, access to creative channels, and if there could be new access to different sources of creative energy. So they're showing, first of all, like a frequency attunement. And this is one thing that they've said before, is that we would be able to regulate our frequency and move it to where we wanted to be. Like if this was like for people who were doing healing work, but you would be able to shift your frequency and shift the frequency of the person into a state where they would be able to heal through the frequency. And this is similar. So they're showing it's like frequency modulation or frequency shifting, and that you would tune into different and like we wouldn't necessarily label them as creative channels, but different energies that would create a different response in you. So you could find those frequencies that for you create whatever creative process, whether that's actually like, what we would consider like artwork, kind of creative, or music, or dance, or something like that, or if it were just like creating, manifesting, making things, looking for potential, or in your creator capacity. It seems to be all about frequency. Again, they're just showing this like tuning into different wavelengths, and then using that. And this to me actually is saying that there's a bigger picture here of not just it's frequency, but it's also information. So it could be sciences, it could be any kind of inspirational process, let's say, and new ideas. That all feels very strong, when really the shift for us is that, it's all there and we're not accessing it. So the shift is in being able to choose where we're tuning into and move our frequency to be able to align so that we can hear what's there, so that we can perceive what's there. And yet part of that could be that you find certain frequencies that energize you, that put you into this state where you go and you do your gardening, or you do your baking and your cooking, or your artwork, or whatever it may be, but it gives you a source that enlivens you. So it becomes like a almost like, it feels like a place that you visit, or that you harness. And it feels like kind of like musical notes, like you would go to this one when you feel this way, you go to that one when you feel that way, or you kind of dip into different places. So, okay, there we go. All right, so let's go ahead and do our connecting. And this isn't going to be a real long one. This is probably just going to be 20 minutes or so, but let's go ahead and tune in to just open to receiving connection. They're already here, and they see you. Even if you're watching this after the fact, or listening after the fact, you can open to connect to them, and just allow their presence, allow your energy to meet their energy. Okay, those of you who are still here can bring yourselves back. That was about twice as long as I was expecting, but the energy was good. I kept asking if we should stop, and they didn't say yes, so. Oh, Peggy, I missed your comment. You had a very cool telepathic experience with your daughter today. That's great. That makes me think of the telepathy tapes. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for joining me. It's been really nice to spend this time with you. And I am going to be opening enrollment for that program, the Human Reformulation, again soon. So if you're interested, click the link in the description to sign up for the email list, and you will get the notifications about that and the upcoming information session. All right. And if you have any questions after the fact, or if you're watching this after the fact and you have questions, just put them in the comments and I will get back to you. Okay, everyone, have a wonderful rest of your day. You are welcome, Alice. All right. I'll see you at the next thing.